Well, I'm between videos on the game, so I figured I'd take time to chat a little bit about something that was on my mind, kind of a random, and it often is. Since I've moved here, especially, it's been disturbing me, which is convenience stores and I guess geography, really, because different areas of the country have different kinds of convenience stores. Now, okay, maybe not different areas. Maybe one area of the country has good convenience stores and the rest of the country has crap. What I'm going to point out is I was living in Buffalo for, I think, 18 years. And it's a cool town. Um, has normal supermarkets, everything else. The inner city area, less supermarkets than anywhere else in the area, even though it's the place where people have the least ability to get to supermarkets. And you have some mom and pop type stores, no question of that. But even in areas where supermarkets are present, there's a certain kind of convenience store that is simply not in existence here in Phoenix, and I don't think in many places when I start to consider what I'm used to. Now, when I lived in small towns in New York State, and also I stayed with my dad in one in New Jersey not that many years ago, there was a certain kind of sort of non-chain convenience store, not quite your mom and pop store. It looked more like a normal convenience store, but it didn't have, you know, a chain brand on it. It was just, and actually where my mom lives, in the towns, in each town, there's a little sort of general store, and where my first girlfriend was, there was a general store, which is basically where you had to go if you don't have a supermarket available. Now, outside of where my first girlfriend was, there was always a supermarket not far from where you would go to these more general, these, I'm going to call them general stores, but I don't know what the right term is. In some cases, they really do feel more like convenience stores. They've got a heavier emphasis on beer and smokes, but they still had bread and milk and eggs and this, that, and the other. But when I lived in Buffalo, there was, and I assume there still is, a chain called Wilson Farms. There was another one which was even better, but it was, I think, a business model that didn't quite work, which was called Be Quick. And those were essentially tiny little grocery stores. And not all of the Be Quicks were actually grocery stores. Some of them were convenience stores, and they were owned by the same brand. The brand also, or the same holding company, but more than the same holding company. There was sort of a very localized, a supermarket, convenience store, and then these kind of in between things, all run by the same department locally that held that brand name. And then there was, you know, I think Dutch Ahold or something like that, which was the parent company that owned several different supermarket chains. But it was a nice staggering of different layers. I would have preferred more of the Be Quicks because those were just awesome. They had pretty much everything you need in a supermarket on a regular basis, but none of the expanded, you know, product lines and this, that, and the other. But the other thing was Wilson Farms, and that was the convenience store level. And you could get, the prices were always a little higher as you expected at a convenience store, but you could get bread there, you could get milk, eggs, boxed food like mac and cheese, and they had both name brand and the store brand that the regular supermarket would carry. You could get everything you could get at a convenience store, and enough more to make it so that, look, you know, if you don't want to go shopping for a couple of days and you're out of food, you're fine. Especially as a student, you know, you got your mac and cheese, you got your tuna, you got your cat food, whatever it is you like to eat. Toilet paper, beer, all this stuff. So when I moved when I moved out to Oregon, now, where my dad was, there was a supermarket nearby, and there were also these kind of minor non-branded convenience stores that felt like they had a significant amount of the stuff. They would be in a strip mall, so I didn't really consider them mom and pop stores, but maybe they really were. They seemed cleaner, brighter, everything like that, and more convenience store-like. But when I moved to Oregon, I didn't really realize that there weren't convenience stores. I think there weren't, I'm not positive, of the type that I'm used to. Now, there were 7-Elevens. We had 7-Elevens in Buffalo, and you would kind of look at them and say, they have one use, right? Okay, if you're nearby and you need smokes or beer, fine, you know, and maybe that's the big market for convenience stores anyway. But the only thing we ever used the damn things for was we'd go out and get the chili dogs, because you could get a box, put a chili dog in it. You didn't even need to grab bread. I don't remember what it was, 50 cents, I think. And you could fill it with meat sauce and cheese, and you know, just had like this whole chili like mix, and it was just awesome. If you wanted the bread, you could have that, but that seemed like a waste of a box space for the cause. We were very poor, but there was absolutely no food there. There may have been bread, but everything was marked up high. It was kind of in a stupid location for us, but it was kind of cool if we were out for a walk or something. We could get a couple boxes of chili dog without bread, and get a fork and just eat away at that. But with Wilson Farms in existence, we had no reason for that. And so I was really shocked. I was not terribly shocked in Oregon when I ran into it, because I was living in sort of the student dorms almost. They weren't associated with the school, but it was shared living apartments. The first place I was in, it was a 4-bedroom thing, 2 bathrooms, shared kitchen, living room. And then I moved to another one because I couldn't stand some of the people. They were just way too loud, who moved in to the unit I was in. I moved to another one that was just 2 people. And anyway, in the center of this sort of compound of apartments, there was a little mom and pop store, and it really felt like a mom and pop store. But again, it had everything you needed, but it was way expensive. You know, like a can of soup would be 50% more than you would pay at the supermarket. But I was okay, because I knew I was in a weird sort of location where there wouldn't be a convenience store. And when I was at the university and needed to go shopping, we had a fridge in the office. That was no big deal because there was a supermarket next door, so I could just go there. So there was no real driving need anywhere I was to be able to pick up anything more than, say, a Big Gulp or whatever it was that the stores there would have, or a bottle of soda even, or whatever. There was just never this need of, yeah, I ought to get myself some bread, some mayonnaise, and you know, some bologna, and I'll be good for a couple of days here or whatever. Never a feeling for that. Never a need to run out and get some cough syrup or painkillers or whatever. So I just never noticed the lack there. But when I moved here, I moved into an area where there is no supermarket near me. The closest supermarket is 45 minutes in walking distance. Let me change that. There's one a little bit closer than that, but it's a Chinese supermarket, and they don't have regular food. I could live out of it, but I can't get bread there, for example. They have no bread. They don't just have Chinese stuff, but and they have Japanese as well, but and probably Korean and other stuff that I don't really recognize. But it's very, very difficult for me to find what I'm used to and kind of need, and especially if I'm in that convenience store type of mood, and it's not that much closer. It's probably about 35 minutes away by walk. So a convenience store would be really helpful to me. And I have one not far away. Since I moved here, there's been one, you know, there was one really right next to me when I first moved here. And I've moved further and further away from it. But it is fucking useless. Beer, cigarettes, sure. It's got a gas pump, I think. No. But many of the company do. It's Circle K, a Texas company. Big chain throughout the Southwest, I guess. And a little further down, there's a 7-Eleven, and it's just as bad as 7-Elevens are everywhere. And the Circle K is basically a 7-Eleven. There's almost nothing else. There's almost nothing present. And, you know, it's not like gas stations don't have their own little convenience mart that is equally bad. It's just like that's the only model that exists here, is you drive in, you can get gas, you can get smokes, you can get beer. I have nothing against that model. I think it works fine. I don't think you need one every 3 blocks, though, because primarily that's for people in cars, and they really could actually drive a couple blocks more to get their gas, their smokes, and their beer. We're in a situation where I live where there really is no place you can get sort of the necessities. You can't get toilet paper anywhere around here. You can get milk and eggs. You can get ice cream, which is very helpful because it's very hard to move ice cream without a car in Phoenix, and even with a car when it's 120. But I can't just go out and get, you know, some lunch meat and some bread. And that dumbfounds me, that there is no place near me that I can do that. It's not like I live where nobody lives. I live in an area where there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3 big condo units, some of which are student renters, in some of them who are using mass transit to move about. There's at least 3 or 4 apartment complexes right near here, all within like a block of this one convenience store. And then the 7-Eleven further down, there are more apartment complexes there. There are a significant number of people who don't drive in these complexes. I see them getting on the bus to go to work, etc. It may not be a huge number, but this is a very densely populated little area that's not terribly affluent, right? And there are other areas further down that are even poorer, to the extent that I'm not sure that a convenience store could even exist in them. I don't think there is one in some of them. But all we have around here is stuff. When we were in Buffalo, we would used to just laugh at its existence. I remember I lived in one neighborhood, and Stop and Shop came in. And that was essentially that 7-Eleven model. Now, there was a Wilson Farms 2 blocks away. The Stop and Shop moved to the end of my block. No one fucking ever went in there. It was also a Red Apple. It changed names. But basically, it couldn't stay open. It used just we've got slightly cheap gas and other stuff available, but they just did not have the food and stuff. I mean, even if you're just going out for beer and smokes, hey, maybe you need some bread, or maybe a box of mac and cheese would be good, or whatever for the morning. It did not make sense, you know, to try to compete against the Wilson Farms. And these other stores just failed time and again. The 7-Eleven was in a kind of weird place. The only one that I'm aware of that survived was in a kind of weird place where it kind of was able to get some additional traffic. Only automobile traffic, but basically I could see where people were going in to get beer or whatever from there, rather than it was quite far to the next convenience store. So they had a competitive edge. But I'm telling you, I don't understand why no one tries to make a real convenience store work. And you can say, well, why don't you do it? But I'm not an entrepreneurial type of guy. But man, I think in my neighborhood someone could clean up in it, and there are many, many other neighborhoods. I don't understand why the model of the 7-Eleven Circle K works. Now, it reaches the lowest common denominator in a sense, which is to say, wherever you put it, it's not going to be overstocked. You know, I mean, it's kind of like if all you sold was beer and smokes, you wouldn't. That would be the model that really fit it. If you got rid of everything except the beer and smokes and maybe the gas, then that would be, you know, the optimal or most extreme version of what it does. So then the question is, well, okay, I could see some places you don't have much room to expand, but the Circle K next that's near me has an extra whole lot next to it that is unused. They own it. They use it sometimes to store transport. I don't know what to call them. They're sort of these. I think they're not. They look like they belong on the back of a tractor trailer, but they aren't quite. They're like these storage things. They just show up there. But those could go just about anywhere. And if they expanded the store to something the size, something nearly twice the size, they could actually offer almost a complete supermarket in there with a deli and all that. And I'll tell you, the Wilson Farms had a little tiny deli in it and everything. The Be Quick went a little further than that. They had an actual butcher there. You know, you could buy hamburger, raw hamburger. You could buy some cuts of meat. You could buy, and it was much closer to a real supermarket there. And I think there would be room if they expanded it to that. But it's like there's this fixation of this is what works. We can't do anything else. But what confuses me is that nobody's moved in with this model that does work elsewhere and absolutely dominates the pure convenience store, at least in a city type of environment. I'm not sure it would work well in the suburbs. I'm not sure it wouldn't, because quite honestly, it seems to work perfectly fine in my dad's neighborhood, which is about as suburban as you can get. It seems to work very well there, where people won't walk a couple extra blocks to the supermarket because they can go to this much more convenient place that's much less crowded, much simpler to cope with. And, you know, it astounds me that there's sort of this inefficiency that I see in the market in terms of meeting this demand. I remember that when I moved in here, before I was in a gay TED community, there was a woman looking for toilet paper, basically. I mean, I couldn't give her a whole roll because I'm pretty short on it too, but she had stopped at 7-Eleven in Wilson Farms, and I gave her a couple of swipes off my roll. But yeah, it's crazy. You know, there are certain core things that you expect to be able to get if there are stores near you. And we're not talking like I'm in some boutique area where all you have is shoe stores and, you know, dress shops and stuff. No, I mean, we have a couple convenience stores in the neighborhood. Neither of them carries anything you really fucking need. Sure, they do have things that people want to go out for really quick, like the smokes and the beer, or the gas. But now I'm biased because I never feel the absolute need for those things. But you know what? I think almost everybody feels a need for toilet paper. I'm probably one of the few people who spent any time being able to avoid toilet paper by using newspaper crumpled up and stuff. I mean, come on, man. Everybody fucking needs toilet paper. And food. Everybody needs food. There's essentially no food in these places. It's just, it's ridiculous to me what they provide and what they don't, and the degree to that. Anyway, I felt like chattering on about this. I know it's not terribly interesting. Nothing I say ever really is. So, cheers.